today, neaters are on my mind. There's a fish out in the Atlantic, out here in the Atlantic, called the Atlantic bonito, and people like to call them neaters. Neederz, neaters. Me and a couple buddies go, my good friend takes me out on the boat sometimes, and we go fishing for neaters. Hello. They seem to migrate, and they end up in the water when it's just about 60 degrees, 61 degrees. So the water's been kind of like around 50 over the past month, and we just hit that 60 degree temp. We're in for some warmer days, but anyhow, the neaters are here, is the point. The neaters are present. So, I don't know who came up with it, but we developed this unit of measurement. We didn't develop the unit of measurement, but we began to measure the amount of neater that we catch on any given day in meters. So it's kind of a ballpark estimate, but you measure the amount of neater in a meter. So say you go out and you get 88 decent sized neaters in one day, you end up with about a third of that number in meters. So, 24-ish meters of neater in one day. 24 to 26 meters of neater. Anyways, that's what came to my mind. So, the number of meters per neater depends on the size. Some years you have big neaters, some years you have little baby ones. And the water temperature, as you can imagine, only sticks at about 60 degrees for a week or so, maybe even less. It depends on how hot the weather is. But it doesn't stick around long, so the neaters aren't here for long. So when they're around, you hear about them. Everyone's out getting neaters. So hopefully we can take a trip in the next day or so. It's Good Friday today for any of you Christians. I was raised Christian. God is everywhere. I believe in God. God is good. God gives direction to my life. And God gives me choice. It's pretty cool. But anyways, we'll get into the meat of the matter today. So today's monologue, I guess, is it has to do with receipt of communication. Because I have an inkling that most people tend to believe when they think of communication, they think of delivery. When people think of communication, they think of what is coming out of my mouth. I don't think many people think of, I think most people think that listening is important, and of course listening is half of communication, but I think it's easy to lose sight of that because listening is what happens in the silence. Listening is what happens with nothing so much to show for it. It happens in silence. So, people think of communicating. They think of, I'm gonna tell you what I need to tell you. But the reality is that communication is half listening. And what is listening? Listening is receiving. It's like someone who's talking to you is a transistor radio. Someone who's talking to you is the tower sending out the signal, and you are the transistor radio, and you're listening to the signal. You're the one who's receiving it. So it works in this way. It's a two-part deal. Two-parter. Why would it be important to consider receipt of communication? So, in my most recent published video, I told a story about how I felt I was not received in the way that I was intending to be received. It's like miscommunication or communication breakdown, where someone says something and it might be received in the wrong way, or it might be received in the unintended way. So, if I had to answer the question of why is it important to consider receipt, I would say it's important because if someone tells you that they get the sense that you misreceived their communication, or if someone makes that clear to you, and you trust that person, why would you not give that person a chance to remedy or to change that outcome? Basically, what seemed to happen in that instance was that we were both speaking quote-unquote different languages, but we were essentially meeting at the same conclusion. And the conclusion that I met at was that what I was hearing was an acceptable way to consider the subject, and what the person I was talking to concluded was that essentially we had the same belief, but I was just putting it in different words. It was phrased differently, and the words I was putting it in, I chose specifically because it allowed for different perception to be possible. It wasn't posed in such a way where I said this is the only way. So, receipt. If I don't feel, okay, so this past week had me feeling a little bit crazy. Crazy in the sense that I was somewhat questioning myself for a little bit because things were happening. I was being told certain things from certain people, and I was essentially being told that what I was doing, or how what I was doing was received, was not received in the way that I thought it was, or essentially that I was wrong. So I felt crazy in the sense that I was questioning myself this week. And I was questioning myself because the majority of people were telling me the opposite of what I was experiencing. I don't know about you all, but the way I feel is that if I do not feel a bit crazy in this world, I'm not aligned with the world. Because the world is chaotic. It's like consistent chaos. Everything you look at is chaos. I mean, the thing about the news is that people will say the media only feeds people bad news because they want to invoke fear, blah, 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 blah. Yes, that might be the case, but is it also the case that these things are still happening? I would say yes. It seems to me that most of the things that are disclosed in the news are actually happening. So it's just chaos. There's chaos all over the place. You know, I mean, there's no way to know for sure what's going on behind the scenes. You can put the pieces together, you can be intelligent, you can have good pattern recognition, but there's not quite any way to know for sure what is happening. But you can observe around you. Does it seem chaotic to be in a room with 5 to 10 people and you say a word? It's not like a cuss word or a racial slur or anything. It's just a word. Consequence, for example, is the word. And you're told that it's not in any way productive to use that word in this setting. How is that not chaotic? Is that not... That seems pretty wild to me. Language is powerful, but when a group of people is telling you you can't use a certain word because it's going to do more damage, I think I should feel like something kind of crazy is going on. So, anyways, the point is that I would rather die where I sit right now than be considered normal in this world. Unless, of course, normal is considered wacko and crazy. And I don't think that's what the general consensus of the meaning of normal is in this world. I think the meaning of normal is this performative game of pretending as if we know just exactly what's going on. We know exactly what the problems are. We know exactly what the solutions are. As individuals, apart from the group, we can zoom out in a bird's eye view and we can just identify all of this stuff. I mean, science tells us so. Math tells us so. What do we need to do to solve the problems? I think that is the general consensus of what normal is in this world. So if that's what normal is, I would rather die sitting right here, because it's an absolute crock of shit. That's my opinion. It seems clear to me that life is supposed to remain a mystery. It's a mystery how we come into the world. It's a mystery how I sit here right now. But then look around and see all of the beauty beauty, incredible, mind-blowing mystery present everywhere. Everywhere. There was this point, not too long ago actually, where I think that I prided myself upon not being surprised by anything. And I guess I don't feel that way anymore. I feel the opposite. I feel like if I don't leave myself any room to be surprised in life, then I'm bummed out. I definitely feel like I'm bummed out if that's the case. And I look back and I reflect, and it's true. Because I think what's contained within that idea of, oh, nothing surprises me. I'm prepared for everything. Everything's predictable. It's like, yes and no. You can kind of see the trajectory of what's going on, at least when it comes down to humanity and, you know, where the cycles that we go through. Because I believe that if you can see and learn about the traits of being human, you can kind of see which traits are at play at large, which traits are common in the population. But then again, it's like you have to leave, and I speak for myself, I have to leave room to be surprised by life. I have to, and people are life. You know, people are of the earth. Like, I'm made up of the stuff that I'm standing on, the ground that I'm standing on, the essence of the ocean. It's like the ocean was my placenta. I was at an open mic on this past Monday, and some guy who was doing a breath work, he was playing guitar and encouraging the audience to do breath work, breathing exercises with him. And his dad was there, and his dad, I don't know where it came from, but he suddenly just told the audience of a story of this kid's placenta, and basically said that he was given birth to at home, and an individual who was assisting the birth said that they had never seen placenta quite like this. This guy had magical placenta. Anyways, I was enjoying that story. Funny. It left me some room to be surprised. So yeah, if I leave myself room to be surprised, life is absolutely incredible. And I think one of the reasons that I stray from that ever is because I want to know what's going on, or I want to feel like I know what's going on. I mean, I think it's this desire for feeling rooted in security and safety and understanding. But it's funny in a paradoxical way. You can be rooted in understanding that you won't understand. Or you can be rooted in understanding that things aren't always as they seem. Even if you've seen patterns repeat for, you know, years of your life, things can change on a dime. So that's something that's become important for me, is allowing myself to be surprised. And it's a good follow-up for this past week's video of reading the signs. Like, God gives me direction in signs that I read. And signs can be things that make me smile, and signs can be things that make me nauseous or make me scared. I'm being guided, because you know, I can convince myself that I'm in control of everything, and that I'm guiding myself, and that all I need is this temporary opportunity as a stepping stone, and then God comes along and bam, you don't have this opportunity. You never did. You weren't supposed to. I'm gonna present you with this instead. Someone said in a meeting I was at recently, they said, God never says no. God either says, I have a better idea, not yet, or the third one I don't remember, but I thought that was pretty funny. God doesn't say no. God just says, not what you expected, not yet, or I have a better idea. When one door closes, another opens. And this has been a theme of the past couple of months. I go through cycles in my life. Cycles of doors opening, cycles of walking through doors, and cycles of doors closing. It's like you walk through a door, you enter the room, and there's only so much to do in the room. Why would you want to be in the same room for your life? And I guess that could apply to multiple things, but when it comes to development of career or development of how you earn a living, yeah, I don't want to be in the same room for my whole life. So what that means is I'm going to have to open and close some doors, or God's going to have to open and close some doors, and I'm going to have to walk through them. The door's going to be there. My legs are going to be pulling me through the door. I'm going to be grabbing onto the frame of the door. Like half of my body's walking into the room, half of my body's grabbing onto the door frame, and I'm just like screaming at myself in my head. It's weird how things work like that. But back to the main video topic. The receipt of communication. They say not to fill in the blanks in communication. And it makes sense, because if you're filling in the blanks, if you have already filled in the blank, it's like if you've never remember Mad Libs, if you're filling in the blanks with your verb, your noun, or your adjective, or whatever it might be, there's no space to put anything. So if you're filling in the blanks in conversation, or an intention or meaning, what the actual intention or meaning, which was there by delivery of the communicator, is unreceivable. And there's some incredible depth of challenge to how hard this can be sometimes. It's like jumping to conclusions. I think jumping to conclusions seems to go hand in hand with personal belief of intelligence. So I think if you walk into a conversation and you see yourself as very intelligent, you see yourself as intuitive or perceptive, you say to yourself, oh, I already know what they're getting at here. I already know what's about to come out of their mouth. Maybe you do know what's about to come out of their mouth, but maybe you can't read the intention. And I think sometimes it's when you get to know a person, unless that person is drastically changing, I think sometimes it's possible to become pretty adept at reading intentions of this person. Sometimes not always. But this stuff is really hard. It's like this opportunity which I thought I had in my life. which has passed me by, and this is one of those doors closing. It was a simple event where my intention was misread, and it was taken in a hostile manner. And strangely enough, it was taken as hostile and kind of derogatory, I guess. Although I was speaking in a respectful tone, I was showing interested body language. Basically, I was speaking respectfully. I was waiting my turn, and I'll be honest, as it escalated, and as I continued to feel that I was shut down over and over again, I began to get a little frustrated. And I think there were one or two times when I interjected. And I know that as someone who's trying to be honest with myself and to grow, I can't say, oh, they were cutting me off, so I'm gonna cut them off. That's not a godly adult way to think, I don't think. If someone's cutting you off repeatedly, you don't try to beat them. You just say, okay, you're not receiving what I'm saying. I'm gonna remove myself from this conversation. So, what happens when these interactions occur in a professional setting, or in your employment setting, your employer, school, authority figures? Do you, as an individual, stoop to their level? 1, 2, do you leave the setting? Walk away from the conversation? Or 3, do you just take it? Personally, I don't want to be a person who ever just takes it. And taking it would just be performative pretend. It would be like, oh yeah, okay, I hear you. It would be self-betrayal, is what I would consider it to be. Self-betrayal. I do not want to be a person who betrays myself. Sometimes it happens, but it's something that I'm on guard from. So I wanted to make this video today to encourage you to think about the importance of jumping to conclusions. And I've come to learn that God always puts these lessons in my life at a time when I need to learn them. So it's not surprising to me that on multiple counts this past week, I had jumped to conclusions, and oddly enough, one of the times that I jumped to conclusions, I was right, and then the other time that I jumped to a conclusion, I was wrong. Jumping to conclusions the first time when I was right, it didn't actually change anything because I wasn't the one making the decision. But the second time when I jumped to conclusions, I was wrong. I started talking to a woman who I know, like somewhat, like, not, I don't know this person well. I see them often at a third place where we go, and this person and I agreed to meet and hang out one day, and this was the day before it happened. We had tentatively scheduled to do this. So the day that we planned for came, and I didn't hear anything from her until, I think it was about 9:30 at night or something. And it so happened that she had a very chaotic day. This is what was reported to me, you know. You do end up judging what people tell you sometimes in accordance to the character that you've witnessed in them. So this person told me that she had an emergency and something to do with her pet, and she was in a chaotic state of mind. Probably like this person a lot. Chaos. And basically it was that she did not intend to disappear and forego all communication. It was more that it skipped her mind because she was focused on all of these things. One of the things being work, the other being her precious little baby. And she was very apologetic about it. She said, "I want to be a woman of my word, and I hope this doesn't change the way you look at me." Before that happened, I think we were planning to get together at like 4 o'clock or something after she got off work. And, you know, 5 o'clock rolls around. I'm sitting there because I've kind of etched this time out of my day. And, you know, you hear nothing, so you're just like, okay, it looks like things are not going as planned, and that's fine. You know, this happens in life. It happens with family members, it happens with coworkers, it happens with anyone. Shit happens. It's like when you get fuming pissed off at some driver because they blew past you or something. You have no idea what's going on. And this comes back to the jumping to conclusions thing. So, anyways, I said to myself, okay, I guess I'm gonna work out and read some. Work on an assignment or two. And that's what I did. But I'd be lying if I didn't say to myself, wow, people are flakes. And this is not to say that I haven't experienced a lot of flaky people. So it's like one of the reasons I jump to a conclusion is because when you experience something in, you know, people over and over and over again, it becomes hard to leave room to be surprised. It becomes very hard to do that. So, I didn't leave myself room to be surprised. I said to myself, oh, this person flaked. I guess I'm not gonna pay this person any mind when I see them because they just disrespected me by, you know, setting an expectation and then just disappearing. So why would I want to associate with someone like that? And then, bam, 9 p.m. comes, and it turns around. You know, people can make excuses. People become professional excuse makers. It's all cool. There's not really any way to know for sure. The best way to come to know is you spend time with people. It takes a good amount of time to get to know a person, I think. And you never fully get to know someone. You never fully get to know yourself. So the lesson of today is pay attention to how you're receiving communication, because it's a big role in communication, and there's a lot that's happening in terms of what's going on in one's head in connection to this, and it makes a big difference. It greatly affects communication, no matter how much you want to believe it or not. I'm gonna come back and rewatch these sometime to remind myself, because it's like I can be aware of this, and this, and then I forget, and it just happens that way. So that's what I'm doing today. That's what I'm paying attention to. And I'm gonna try not to jump to conclusions. God has surprises in store. Like, the tide is really drawn out right now, and the beach is really flat. I thought it would be cool to sit closer to the surf. Have some waves creep up. But anyways, stay crazy. Stay surprisable. Allow yourself to be surprised. I'm going through my second read of Infinite Jest, a fucking zany, wacky book, and in connection to this video, where it's like you think you have everything figured out. It's like there was a time school leads one to believe that you read books to be smart. You read books to become intelligent, and it makes sense. Like, education is amassing of knowledge or amassing of intelligence. But it's like intelligence and knowledge, or knowledge, is ever evolving. So it's like it doesn't matter. So I guess the point is when you're reading, I think I began to enjoy reading a lot more when I looked at it as something to have fun doing. It's like reading sparks the imagination. It's like you're interpreting symbols scratched onto pieces of dead trees with ink and like hallucinating in your head, essentially. I always love that. I don't remember, I think it might have been Terrence McKenna who said that. But anyways, it's like, I think it's a trap to say to yourself, oh, I'm gonna read because I want to be smart. I think it's a trap. And that's a trap that I'm trying to stray away from too. I'm gonna read because I want to have fun. And in the end, you do learn. It's like learning is always happening, but if I'm reading for the purpose of just being sharp and a know-it-all, nope. People are finding some sweet shells on the beach today. Shark's teeth. Heck yeah. Over and out.
Got the best seat in the house right there.
Yes, sir.